I was talking fantasy football with my friends the other day.
Alan Bravo.
Echo.
November.
Tango. On.
Football.
Well, welcome back to the dungeon, everybody. We're here, week 15 of the NFL, and I'm not really feeling all that well today. I'm just kind of
so you guys know, Alan got his COVID booster shot yesterday. So, Alan, how you feeling today, buddy?
I really feel great. The reason I feel great is because Josh and I both made the playoffs this year. Bam! Of course we did. I had no doubt.
Yeah.
Did you?
No
whatsoever. All right, let's get this show on the road. Let's talk about our beers. Josh?
Yeah.
What you got for a beer?
I have 0-0 beer because this week...
Well, hold on.
Okay.
Where do you buy these crazy beers? These 0-0 beers? These all these other beers that we've had?
Well, if you email us, you will find out where to get these beers at, right?
Yes.
Email us or shoot us a comment on the show, and you'll find out where you can get these beers.
Yep.
Now, my beer is 0-0.
Why?
Well, because it's a new season. It's playoff season.
That's right.
Yep.
It is.
So everybody's records get washed out. It's one game at a time, like the old, one of the most overused cliches go in sports. One game at a time. It's a new season starting. And this is playoffs. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I am so happy that we both made the playoffs too this year. So,
me too.
My beer, I'm gonna tell you about my beer.
Let's do it.
All right, my beer is. You could name my beer.
And how would somebody go about naming your beer?
Well, if you send an email to bentffb@gmail.com, you can actually give us a phrase, give us a word. I'll put it on my beer. I don't care what the phrase is. Keep it clean. But if it's on the beer, I will name it, or I will give an explanation for it, and I will tie it back into football somehow. So test me. And actually, next week, we're going to do the same thing.
We're going to do the same thing, yes.
So Josh is going to name my beer. I'm going to name his beer. We're not going to have any idea what it is until we get on the air. Once we get on the air, we have to read the beer. And then whatever the phrase is or word is, we have to somehow connect it back into football. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with our beer naming.
And we're going to look like fools, I'm sure, too. So.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will, especially when you read mine. All right, so let's do this as we do every other week. Pop open a cold one. Sit back and enjoy the show. All right, so I want to get into something. During this whole season, I've been dedicating different parts of the season, including the preseason, to people I've lost in the past. I'm dedicating the last 4 weeks of our show to my brothers that I lost. One of them I lost prior to me being born, and then the other one I lost to cancer. My brother Alan is the one that passed away before I was born, and then my brother Terry is the one that I lost to cancer. So the last 4 weeks of the show are dedicated to those two. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture handy to show you, but that's who the show's going to the last 4 weeks. And with that in mind, for next season, we are going to have a league that is dedicated to, actually sponsored by Bent on Fantasy Football, but it's dedicated to bringing some money to some charities. So what we're going to do now, you'll have more details coming up in the next few weeks, but there will be an entry fee on it. A portion of the entry fee will go to probably the Cancer Research Foundation in order to try to alleviate cancer. Most of the people that I've dedicated the shows to this season, other than my mom and my dad, I've lost to cancer. So we want to rid the world of cancer. At least one little baby step towards it. So I will have more details in the upcoming weeks, but just know that all the money that comes in for it is going to go right back, and there's not going to be
none of it's going to go into our pockets whatsoever.
There's going to be not going to be any profit on our end. We're putting it all back into you guys and into charity. So That being said, we want to jump into this week, and we want to talk about what's Gub.
What's Gub?
And for those of you who didn't see it before, Gub means what's got us bent. So what is Gub? We have the same thing this week.
We do have the same thing this week. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
No, I'll let you go right ahead.
Okay. I think you were the one who told me, Ellen, something like 37 positive tests on Monday for COVID-19.
Yes.
Okay.
The most ever since the outbreak.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm getting really, really sick about hearing about this for a couple of reasons. Number one is because a lot of the guys on our fantasy teams are affected by this.
Yep.
So that really puts our fantasy teams at a disadvantage. But number two, the most important is the players know what the protocols are, what the COVID rules are. We've had the same rules in place all season, yet for some reason, they keep getting caught up in positive tests, positive exposure. That means, being exposed or in close proximity to a player who had tested positive for COVID or a family member. You know what the rules are. You continue to break them. What the heck's going on? We should not be getting positive COVID tests or COVID-19 protocol sits this late in the season.
No, we shouldn't. It's really ridiculous because, like you said, Josh, they do know the rules. They do know the protocols. We've got players that are trying to pretend like they have been vaccinated, inoculated, or whatever term you want to use.
Immunized or what?
Yeah. I mean, whatever term you want. But they know that they haven't been, and they're trying to pass it off as they have been. Totally irresponsible. The NFL needs to crack down on that. Another thing, too, and I'm going to preface this by saying, even though I'm a Bears fan, I am not against the Lambeau Leap. I think it's a great thing for celebration. I think it's a great way to get fans involved in the game, and I'm all for the Lambeau Leap.
I think it's one of the greatest celebratory traditions in all the sports.
I think so, too, to be honest with you. But what I don't like is the fact that they're doing it during this COVID pandemic.
I agree.
I don't think that the players should be jumping up into the stands. Save that for after the pandemic or before pandemics, whatever. But we don't want to see that during the season. I don't think it's in the NFL's best interest. I don't think it's in the fans' best interest either. So, these guys get paid a lot of money.
They do.
They have responsibilities. They're adults. They know what the rules are and how to follow the rules. Now, granted, sometimes the league has a little bit more lax rules, but you know what? As an organization that you've got billions of dollars invested into, you really, really, really should take a look at your investment and try to save it. And the way to save it is keep COVID out of it.
Absolutely. And not necessarily saying that the player could give fans, but vice versa as well.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, so not only are you risking exposing fans to that, but you're risking your billion-dollar investment also.
Exactly. All right. So that's what's got us bent this week. You can always email us, like I said before, at bentffb@gmail.com. Tell us what's got you bent, and we can put it on the show also. I wanted to mention that you can go to bentonfootball at bentonfootball.godaddysites.com, and you can see our start 'em and sit 'em every week. You can see some different things on there. Jump on there, take a look at it.
Active inactives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can jump on there, take a look at it, and see what you think. Give us some feedback on it. We'd love to have some information if you haven't seen it already. So we want to jump this week right into games with playoff implications and talk about it from a fantasy perspective and kind of go through some of the players that are in those games and what to expect from them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the games that we're going to be looking at have actual NFL playoff implications, but we think they're important because there's an extra sense of urgency in these games. I mean, we're coming down 4 weeks left in the regular season. So that gives that extra incentive, that extra urgency for these players to perform. The first game we really, really are excited about is the Kansas City and LA Chargers game.
Yeah, it's on Thursday night, primetime show, or primetime game, I should say. Very, very liberal, I guess, with the over under, or the over under this week.
52 points.
52 points, but the spread's only 3, and Kansas City
Kansas City's favored.
Kansas City's favored by 3. So I see a lot of fantasy points coming out of this game, though.
Oh God, I do too.
On both sides of the ball. I have a feeling that this is Now, that being said, a lot of this may depend on whether Austin Eckler's available or not. If he's
that's
playing
true. That is true.
He's going to be a big part of that if he is playing. Right now, the last I heard is that he was day-to-day?
Day-to-day. We'll find out more probably Friday. If he doesn't practice Friday, it's probably not looking good.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he sits out every day and then practices Friday and then plays. But that Friday practice is really going to be the big indicator for us.
Yep. So he's on my fantasy team, so I've got a close eye on him also.
And I'm sure a lot of people have Kansas City and Chargers players. I mean, they're two of the most highest scoring offenses. And the reason that we really like this game, the biggest reason is only one game separates those two. So it's not like you have one game. Chiefs are 9-4, Chargers are 8-5. So they're going to play till the very end. You know, they're not going to sit their starters in the third quarter if they're down 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So that means more fantasy action. That's one reason why that over-under is so high at 52.
Yep.
You know, more NFL points means more fantasy points.
Yeah, so what do you think of the Chargers receivers? What do you think of the receiving core?
I think Keenan Allen's really, really stepping up lately in the last couple games. He really cemented himself as that #1 receiver again. Mike Williams took it over early on in the season. Although Mike Williams did have a really, really nice last couple of games.
Yeah.
So I would like either one of those guys. I think Herbert is a big fantasy must start week in, week out. Eckler, if he's healthy, you know, it all comes down to that.
Right.
And then the Chiefs, you got the usual suspects.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Again, a lot of fantasy points coming out of this game, but Justin Herbert really stands out in my mind. I think he's going to have a big game. Kansas City's defense isn't that strong against the pass, so I think he's going to have a really solid game. If we look back at Kansas, or on the other side of the ball, I should say, at Kansas City, what do you see on that side?
I see. What don't I see on that side?
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, the Chargers defense coming into the season was supposed to be a top 5 defense. To put it nicely, they're not. Okay, that's putting it mildly. So, Patrick Mahomes, you know, you got the 2-headed running back, Kelsey Hill. You could get buku points out of those guys.
Now, let me ask you this. What is your take on, because we've talked about this before, what is your take on Clyde Edwards-Helaire and, was it Darrell Williams? That's what it is.
Darrell Williams.
Darrell Williams. What's your thought?
Well, you and I both kind of said we like Darrell Williams, and I remember you saying that this could be the end for Helaire.
I said this does spell the end
for Helaire.
I was wrong, at least at this point.
And I think after watching the last couple games together of the Chiefs, I think with a healthy Helaire, it's his job. You know, no hands down. You know?
He looks a lot better coming back from injury, which is very rare, as opposed to before injury, because he was really struggling before that injury. Comes back, he's actually lighting it up right now.
Yeah, so. And even though Williams is outpacing him per yards per rush, the volume is just heavily in favor of CEH. So they don't draft a running back number 5 overall and then sit him in his second year just because he got injured. So
there's the old rule too. You don't lose your starting position to an injury, right? So yeah, I agree too. I was obviously wrong on that one, at least at this point in the season. But
okay, that was at 13:28. If you guys want to rewind your tape to hear Alan say I was wrong on that one, so
yeah, it doesn't happen that often.
I'm gonna make a loop out of that and just play it like that He-Man song that they play for like 12 hours straight.
Oh boy. How are you gonna get the video? Because it's all mine.
That's right.
I have copyright.
Darn it.
All right. Anyway. So I think that you pretty much nailed it. Clyde Edwards has come back. He's been pretty solid. So that whole Kansas City offense is looking really good against the Chargers defense. The Chargers defense is mediocre at best, at least for the pass. And that's Kansas City's bread and butter. The pass game is what they're all about. So I think it'll be a high scoring game. That 52 I think should be a little bit higher for the over under, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll find out.
I think it'll go well over that. So especially with the implications that they're going to have to play with. The next game that we kind of like here is Washington and Philly. Now, you guys are probably going to say, oh, my God, those teams are horrible. Here's the thing, though, and this kind of boggled my mind at this late in the season. They're both 6-7. It's a divisional game. Somehow, at 6-7, they're both playing for a playoff spot. Okay, they're still alive now.
Must have something to do with that terrible division.
Must have something to do with it. I think that is something to do with the terrible division. But surprisingly, the over-under on this is 44. I thought it would be a little lower. The way Washington's offense has kind of sputtered lately. Philly's a 7-point favorite. Now, like we said about the last game, there's a lot more urgency and incentive in this game. So, you know, they're going to go all out. And when teams really need a win like that, they're going to rely on their big playmakers, okay? And there's a few guys we each like on both sides of the ball. Let's start with Washington. Who do you like on that side of the ball?
Well, I like Washington's running game. I like Terry McLaurin if he's healthy. I think last week, I believe he suffered an injury, but...
he did. Four targets, no catches.
Yeah, if he's injured, forget about it. I'm going to kind of wash my hands on Washington. But if he's healthy, then I think that opens up the running game, and I think that opens up their passing game.
I agree.
So I really believe that they'll have some solid points from at least those two positions.
I do too. Too.
As far as anything else on the Washington side of the ball, let's talk about Philly a little bit.
Philly, you know, Minshew is kind of a dark horse right now. You know, if Hurts is still out, you know, Minshew's got that starting job. He's kind of starting to gain chemistry with those receivers. I really like Devontae Smith this week. I don't see anybody in Washington's secondary really covering him.
Yeah,
their secondary, that's where they're weak.
Yep.
And he can run that deep route. Minshew can throw that deep route.
Yep.
He can run that intermediate route, and Minshew is very, very accurate. And you know, that intermediate route as well.
I don't even know why Minshew was benched in Jacksonville. He wasn't. His fantasy stats weren't bad, but on top of that, his actual game stats weren't that bad. He just had a horrible supporting cast.
He did, and you know, I'll tell you this: the only reason is because a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence comes around once every 5-10 years, you know. So.
Yeah, he was benched in the middle of last season.
He was.
That's and for who?
God, I don't even remember. It wasn't Simeon. I forget who it was.
Yeah, exactly my point. Exactly my point. It obviously didn't matter.
Right.
So, yeah, I like Minshew as a quarterback. I think he's one of those kind of like Carr, a high volume quarterback because his team's going to be behind all the time.
Yeah.
So I like the upside for him. The floor on him though is really, really, really high. And that's due to the team that he's on. So it really depends on
the defense keeps him in games. You know, that's one of the reasons Jalen Hurts kind of thrived so much this year.
Exactly.
You know, he really outperformed a lot of haters there. You know, he's top 5 actually in points per game. Jalen Hurts is per quarterback. So
yeah, I mean that's outstanding for per game.
Yeah.
All right, the next game we want to talk about is going to be Tennessee and Pittsburgh. Pretty good game on the horizon here. We have different opinions, though, as far as the fantasy goes. Tell me about Tennessee, Josh.
I really, really like Deontay Foreman this week.
Okay.
I'm not as high on Tannehill as you are.
I love Tannehill.
I know you like Tannehill. You know, I may be able to jump on that bandwagon. I did pick up Tannehill this week in fantasy just in case Lamar's out. So, you know, because there was no other options. But I think I may be leaning more toward, you know, your side with the Tannehill pick. This is a must-win game for them. So,
and Tannehill's a seasoned veteran, so he knows that. He's going to come with his A game. Pittsburgh's defense is not as good as everybody thinks they are.
They are starting to play better, though.
They're not as good. They're playing over their heads. I'm
yes,
just saying.
They are.
I don't think they're as good as they've been playing. They're 6-6, so they're
wait. They're what?
6-6-1.
Yes, I hate that one.
I should have.
I made him say it.
I should have rubbed that in, but I was going to be the good guy and not do that. But anyway, they're 6-6-1. If they weren't 6-6-1 and they were like, I don't know, 8 wins, 10 wins, I'd say yeah, or 9 wins even. I'd say yeah, their defense is that good. Offense wins games. Defense wins championships.
I know.
And I think that Pittsburgh's defense is not good enough to win them a championship at any point. So,
okay. I agree with you on that.
I'm going to say that that Tennessee's pass game is going to see some big numbers this week.
I hope so.
I know you do. You got you got AJ Brown on your team.
Well, that's if he plays this week. Who knows?
That's true.
You know.
That's true.
And Tennessee is 9-4, so they have a huge incentive to win this game. You got KC 9-4. Who else is 9-4? New England.
New England.
Yeah, that's one of the big surprises of the year.
Yes.
But this is a must-win game for them. Now, those people out in the desert must know something that we don't, Alan, because that game is only a 1.5-point line. And that kind of surprised me in favor of Tennessee.
I'm going to tell you, the people in the desert know a hell of a lot more about football than what we do.
Oh, hell yeah. Heck yeah, they do.
So, they definitely do know something we don't know. But I got to agree with you, though. I mean, I think there's going to be points on both sides of the ball. Big Ben, also struggling this season.
Mm-hmm.
Injury prone, we know that. Big Ben, I think, is going to have a pretty mediocre game. Unfortunately, I think Tennessee's defense is I think the combination of Roethlisberger running out of gas and Tennessee's defense is not a good thing for Pittsburgh.
I agree with you.
And they have no juju.
Yeah, they have no juju.
No juju.
And it really hates me to say, a team that has a tie is vying for playoff contention. So
yeah.
I hate saying that, but we talked about the 1.5-point line in favor of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that game is 41.5. I thought it would be quite a bit higher. The weather's supposed to be nice in Pittsburgh, because you and I both expect a lot of fantasy points.
You know, when we looked at the what our bet predictions are, that's one of the things we look at is the spread and the over under on games. When I looked at that, I was not shocked by that 41.5. I was not shocked by that. I think it's going to end up pretty close to that, to be real honest with you, at least in my opinion. But I think it's not going to be an even split, obviously. You know, I think it's going to be...
It's not going to be 21-20 or 24-17.
Right. It's going to be a little bit more lopsided in Tennessee's favor.
I hope so, and I think so, too.
I hope so.
Pittsburgh's side of the ball, you got Najee Harris. That's a given. The only other person I really like on that team is Pat Freiermuth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think and not to give it away because I know you guys really want to go to benonfootball.godaddysites.com and find out what stardom and situms are. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but we both picked him as our starting tight end this week.
And did you know, Ellen, that Freiermuth, as a rookie tight end, is actually having a better season than Kyle Pitts?
Wow, we're back to episode 1 or 2.
That was the very first. That was episode 1. So
we're back to episode 1. We've come full circle with the show now. We are done. Thank you. Have a great night.
Just some little news tidbits out there for you guys. So.
Yeah. So no, you're right though. I mean, he is actually in Freiermuth, whatever his name is.
Freiermuth.
Yeah, that guy is having a really, really good season in comparison to other tight ends.
Yes.
Rookie tight ends, I should say. Let's jump on to Cincinnati and Denver.
Okay. I am excited about this game. This is a 3 p.m. game, and I think you are too.
I am.
Both teams are 7-6, and both teams are in playoff contention still.
Yes, they are.
So the implied point total here, a little higher than I thought it would be with Denver's defense, especially playing in Denver, 44 points. So that being said, I think a lot of fantasy points are up for grabs in this game.
Oh, there are, and I know you're not big on the matchup with Burrow and Denver's defense. I am.
Okay.
I think Joe Burrow is actually a stud quarterback this year. I think he can take on Denver's defense, and I think he can win.
Well, he went up against that San Fran defense last week and put up 348 and 2 touchdowns.
Exactly. So, with Burrow, what do you see as the next? I'm going to assume that he's the top point getter on Cincinnati. Who do you see as being next?
The only thing that concerns me, I like that receiver core, but generally there's been very, very few times where you've had either Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both do good in the same game. Okay, Jamar Chase has had huge games. T. Higgins has had huge games. He did last week. But it's hard to know who to trust in that. Now, I would play if I had to. If I had them both, you almost have to play both. Okay? But I think there's
a hard one.
Yeah, it's a very hard one.
Denver's defense is good, so somebody's going to get shut down.
Yeah.
We just don't know who it's going to be.
Well, and then you have Tyler Boyd, don't forget.
Right.
And then those backs can catch passes out of the field, both P. Ryan and Mixon.
Right.
So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Cincinnati mixes it up and what they do to offset that Denver defense. But, you know, Denver's defense is solid, but I still think the points are going to get spread out. Again, we don't know which wide receiver is going to get them, but one of those wide receivers. So buyer beware. If you have one or both of those receivers, think real close and really look at your history on scoring and everything with Denver just to see who you think is going to, because it could go either way.
See, yeah, and here's the problem. I mean, it's not like it's week 6 where you can say, well, if I'm going to put in T. Higgins, if Jamar Chase goes off, it's not a big deal.
Right.
This is week 1 of the playoffs.
This is the playoffs. This is the big show.
It's basically hit or miss, but at this point, you're in the conundrum. You pretty much have to start either one of those guys if you have them.
Yep, absolutely. So let's move on to Green Bay and Baltimore.
What about Denver? We want to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. We didn't cover Denver.
Denver, I'm not too high on Bridgewater. I think he's more of a better NFL quarterback than a fantasy quarterback. I'm really starting to like Javonte. Although Melvin Gordon did have a big week again last week. He's just the epitome of a point blocker.
Yeah.
I think Judy and Fant are pretty much it for me.
Yeah, and Fant has been pretty modest this season. He's had a couple good games, a couple really high-scoring games. I don't know that I would really trust him as much at this point. If you've got a better option, somebody who's been scoring a little bit more, I would probably go that route. However, he's in my lineup. My disclaimer, I'm telling you guys that, but he's in my lineup because I think he's the best option I have. Actually, I have Cincinnati's tight end too,
Uzoma, yeah, or Uzoma, whatever. We're not 100% sure on how to pronounce it,
yeah,
so
and we really don't care. We just know who he is. Yeah, I'm going with Fant. I'm gonna sit whatever his name is, and I'm gonna go with Fant. So buyer beware again. That could go south really quick too. So
it could.
Denver side of the ball, maybe a defense. I don't know. Maybe defense.
See, it's hard to say because if Burrow has a blow up game like last, you're going to score negative points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe special teams might have something on tap, but that's about it. I don't know. I don't have much faith in Bridgewater either. So
no.
I think most of the points on that game, fantasy-wise, anyway, are going to be on the Cincinnati side of the ball.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about Green Bay and Baltimore.
Okay. Green Bay and Baltimore.
Now, we both have a lot at stake in this one, don't we?
We do. We
both have Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Who, by the way, is listed as day-to-day.
And I also have Marquise Brown. That makes he takes a huge dip if Lamar doesn't play also.
Yep, absolutely. So the last I heard about Jackson was that he has a high ankle sprain, avoided the dreaded...
No, it's not a high ankle sprain.
I'm sorry, a low ankle sprain. Avoided the dreaded...
Thank God it's not a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, he avoided the high ankle sprain, so that's good news. Being day-to-day is good news for Lamar because he tends to bounce back from injuries pretty quickly. So I think we'll see some fantasy points from him out there. I definitely that offensive line scares the heck out of me.
It does. It does.
But we've got to have him in our lineup, right? I mean, I've got Tannehill as a backup, and you've got who did you pick?
Tannehill.
Did you pick up Tannehill? Okay.
Yeah.
So we both have Tannehill as a backup on that. I'd rather see Lamar in the lineup. I'd rather see that Baltimore offense clicking. Besides, I want the Packers to lose.
Yes. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think Lamar's going to play. Here's the reason. They got 4 games left in the season. They're really fighting for that number 2-3 seed. Mm-hmm. You got a bunch more teams that are 9-4, 8-5. Baltimore's 8-5, by the way. Mm-hmm. So every game is a must-win game for them.
It is.
Okay. If they lose this game too, the last game we talked about, Cincinnati, Denver, they're going to be tied with the 5th or 6th seed with whoever wins that game if they lose.
Yeah, so basically, Baltimore losing really mucks up the water with the playoff picture. So,
it does, especially in the AFC.
It does. So that being said, let's jump onto the Green Bay side of the ball because I'm a little mixed here. I want to see Jackson go off and get a whole lot of points for me, but on the other side of the ball, I kind of want Green Bay to be ahead because I've got Aaron Jones and I want them running the ball.
I do too, and I think they will. Now that line started at Green Bay -2. Okay, on Monday when it opened, it's up to 5.5 now. So it's already moved 3.5 points in Green Bay's favor. Now Green Bay, keep in mind, they're fighting right now for #1 seed, so this is a must-win for them.
Yep.
Especially with what happened Monday night. The Rams beat the Cardinals, so there's pretty much a 3-way tie there for first place in the NFC. Now, Packers did beat the Cardinals, didn't they?
I believe so.
I believe they did. And then the Rams beat the Cardinals, or the Cardinals beat the Rams, so that's kind of all mucked up as well.
Yeah.
But I expect Green Bay to be up big in this game, and that's better for us.
Oh, yeah. Fantasy points come to Papa.
Yeah.
Because,
that means Aaron Jones is going to run the ball a heck of a lot, and Lamar's going to have to run and pass a lot. So
Right. That Green Bay defense scares me against Baltimore. Like I said, I'm a little leery about that offensive line. And Green Bay's front line, their defensive front line is awesome when it comes to getting to the quarterback. So that scares me a little bit. So you'll probably see a lot of running yards out of Jackson. Or I should say you'll probably see a lot of runs out of Jackson.
Yes.
They may be negative. You may see some negative ones, but I think overall Jackson's going to be a good point scorer on that. I think Marquise Brown is also going to benefit from that, especially if he has time to throw. Go ahead. Mark Andrews as well. Green Bay side of the ball, Aaron Jones. Obviously, the quarterback.
Yeah.
Obviously, the wide receiver. We know that. So
A.J. Dillon, I would probably throw in that mix too.
Yeah, and A.J. Dillon as well. I hate to say that because again I have Aaron Jones. But, but the other thing we talk about wide receivers, he has one key wide receiver. But what about some of the guys like Scantling? What is it, Valdez-Scantling?
Yeah, Randall Cobb,
another one, absolutely. What do you see in these guys? These are guys that are typically not necessarily at the top of your radar for fantasy purposes, but these guys are the ones that can win you championships too.
These are. Now, I expect Green Bay to throw a lot early. In fact, Aaron Rodgers could have 250 yards passing by halftime.
Yeah.
Now, those aren't all going to go to Devontae Adams, of course.
They
They can't.
There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. But I think Baltimore's going to really key in on Adams. So I wouldn't expect one of those other receivers to have a big game. Who was it last week that had a pretty big game? Was it Scantling or?
Scantling had a few good catches. I don't think he had that big of a game. It was.
I forget who it was. It was one of the other receivers, the secondary receivers. So Devontae Adams caught a long touchdown.
Yeah, I don't. It might have been Scantling. It might have been Valdez-Scantling. I'm not sure.
Okay. But
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you have plenty of fantasy options now. Of course, on Baltimore's side, that all hinges on Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you really don't have any except Andrews, maybe if Tyler Huntley's playing.
Right. Yeah. That kind of we talk about. I've always talked about the house of cards in Dallas.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's somewhat like that too in Baltimore.
I would say it's even more so in Baltimore because you don't have as many weapons as Dallas does.
Well, I understand that, but Baltimore also had a decent game last week, despite the fact that Jackson sat most of the game.
Yeah.
So I see a lot more depth in Baltimore than I do in Dallas. So house of cards, not quite as much. But yeah, still very volatile. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So let's jump into some of the other games we have going on. We've got Seattle and the Rams.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be a really, really big game here.
I think that's going to be a lopsided game. Seattle has fallen apart this season. I think the Rams are starting to put the pieces together a little bit more, and the defense is starting to look a lot better.
They are.
So I see a rough road if you've got Russell Wilson, I see a rough road for you. If you've got anybody on the Rams offense, I see smooth sailing.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, those two teams usually play each other tough, regardless of records. Now, here's the thing: Seattle's 5-8, Rams are 9-4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at home, the Rams are only a 4.5-point favorite. That's not a lot. Okay, I do agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of points. But not just on the Rams side. I think this could be a game for Metcalf. Tyler Lockett, he's had some huge games lately. Gerald Everett's really starting to get more of that target share. Mm-hmm. And Rashad Penny, oh my God, he came out of nowhere. I mean, he's living up to the hype from a couple years ago when he first came into the league.
Yeah, he wasn't playing the Rams though last week, was he? No,
he was not playing the Rams. He was not playing the Rams.
He didn't have a big Ndamukong Suh standing in front of him either, did he?
No, he did not.
See, that's where it comes in.
I don't, and I'll argue with this. That guy should not still be in the league.
Hey, I'm not saying he should be in the league. I'm just saying that's one big dude to try to run through.
I know
that's all
it is.
I'm saying. But yeah, no, I mean the Rams defense is really good, and I think, you know, especially like I said up front, they've added Von Miller, so they've got a solid defense. Again, defense wins championships. Seattle, so disappointing this year.
Oh God, I think they're the biggest disappointment in my mind in football.
I mean, let's look at this. So here's what's happening here's what's happened in Seattle is Russell Wilson asked for a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he said, you know, I'd go to this team, this team, this team, and this team. Seattle was like, we don't really want to trade you. We want to kind of keep you here. So they decided they're, you know, not going to search for a trade or whatever the case may be, even though there's teams interested, obviously. But let's move ahead where now all of a sudden Wilson's not really having a good season.
No, he's not at all.
He's playing on a team that he doesn't want to be with. So how does that translate into good morale for the team in general?
No, it doesn't.
Exactly. So, you know, I think the downfall that we see, obviously that Seattle's defense is not the Legion of Boom that it used to be.
Oh, God, not even close.
Right.
Not even close.
Forget the defense for just a minute. The offense, I think the whole offense has been affected by this.
I do too.
By Wilson's play, by probably an attitude that we don't see on the field. He's a professional on the field, that type of thing, but behind the scenes, we don't know what happens. We don't know, you know, he might be mumbling and under his breath or whatever the case may be. I think that's affecting the team in general. So on the Seattle side of the ball, I don't see a whole lot of fantasy points. I'm thinking that the Rams are going to run away with this game in a big way. I think maybe the points or the over-under is probably what is the over-under in that game? Do you know?
45.5, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was kind of low for what I thought. I think it's going to be a little bit higher. Seattle will get some points, but I think the Rams are going to blow them out.
Okay. See, I disagree with you on the blowout part. I think there's going to be plenty of fantasy points to go around. Not as many key players on Seattle's side. I really only like Penny and Metcalf, and that's about it.
I don't like Penny. Metcalf is a maybe for me. I'll give you that. Metcalf is a maybe, but I don't like Penny.
Okay.
I don't think he's... That Rams defense is too much. They're going to start. You've seen Von Miller more involved in it. You've seen him getting a sack, even. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So he's involved in the defense. He knows what's going on in there. I think he's going to be a solid staple as well.
Okay, and we'll see what happens with that game because I think it could go one of two ways. Now, keep in mind too the other night, Monday night, when the Rams played a mobile quarterback, James Conner. I mean, Russell Wilson is a mobile quarterback. I wouldn't say he's not quite as young as Kyler Murray.
He is.
So not quite as agile.
Not as mobile as some.
But when they play mobile quarterbacks, like the first time they played Arizona even too, the running backs really feasted on that. You know, in fact, Connor had, 9 catches for 94 yards. And then he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Not a lot of yards, but Rams have trouble with that mobile quarterback. And I think that could be Penny's saving grace in this matchup.
Possibly. I still think it's going to go one way larger than the other, but we'll agree to disagree on that. We'll move on to the Las Vegas-Cleveland game.
Las Vegas-Cleveland, okay.
I am really hyped about this game.
So am I. This is a Saturday game. So, and unfortunately, I don't get to watch them. But Alan does, so.
Do I have a wah, wah, wah in here somewhere? I should have, but.
Yes. Oh, well.
Anyway.
No, he doesn't have it in there, but I think fantasy implications, I don't know. We went back and forth on this before the show on Carr. You're not high on Carr in this game at all, are you?
Yes and no. Volume-wise, I think Carr is going to do just fine. I think he's going to have his normal volume. Points-wise, I don't see a whole lot of receiver points. Well, actually, I take that back. I do see some receiver points in there, and I think it's going to be Renfro.
Okay. I wouldn't disagree with you. Look at his target share.
He's the staple right now. What scares me, I guess, is a better way of explaining it, is that Cleveland's defense doesn't give up a lot of yardage.
Yeah.
Period. Whether it's on the ground or through the air, they don't give up a lot of yardage. Now, that being said, if the Raiders are behind, they're going to have to pass it. If they're ahead, they're going to have to pass it. The reason they're going to have to pass it is because they're going to have a big lead, depending on whether Baker Mayfield is playing or not.
And I don't remember what the line is on that game. I think it's something like 3.5 Cleveland.
Do you have any latest news on Baker Mayfield?
I don't. As of right now, he's more likely to be out. But you know, like who were we talking about earlier? The running back, if he played Friday.
Elijah Mitchell? No.
God, I forget who it was.
Anyway.
But anyway, we'll find out more Friday.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he does play. If he does not play, the Raiders will blow him out. But from a fantasy perspective, It kind of blows anything on the Cleveland side of the ball anyway, other than maybe Hunt. Or I'm sorry, Chubb.
Hunt and Chubb.
Yeah, I was thinking Chubb.
Yeah, I don't like any of the receivers in there,
and that, you know, that's another mixed bag too, is Hunt and Chubb. Again, you know, having two players on the same team, same position, is kind of hard from a fantasy perspective. But it's also hard even if you only have one, because you don't really know where those points are going to get split up.
Oh, we were talking about Eckler earlier. If you correct us.
Yes,
okay.
You're right. It was Eckler. All right.
New England, Indianapolis. Now, New England should, on paper, win that game pretty easily. Okay?
You would think so.
You would think so, but there are playoff implications for both of those teams. New England could pretty much cement the #1 seed if they win out.
And who would have seen that coming?
Oh my God, not me.
No, me either. I did not expect. Bill Belichick took that team from a nobody team and turned them around to a good team, a good solid team again. That guy's a wizard.
And that defense is starting to play like we talked about last week, like the #1 overall defense they were a few years back.
Yep.
I mean, that defense is just amazing right now.
It is.
Indianapolis needs a win though as well.
They do.
They're 6-7. They're still in playoff hunt. Believe it or not, at 6-7. I hate saying that this late in the season, but it's a must win for both.
It is. It is. Indy, I have a lot of faith in Indy's offense.
Mm-hmm.
I like Carson Wentz as their quarterback. I like Michael Pittman. I like Jonathan Taylor. I think their offense is really, really solid. I think they're going to run into a buzzsaw in New England, though.
I do too.
I don't know that they're going to be as prepared as they need to be for that. I think there is going to
be a lot of volume, though.
They rely on Jonathan Taylor a whole lot, and if they try to do that now, they're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get anything out of Jonathan Taylor because they're going to key on him and game over at that point. Pittman, on the other hand, if they can get some passes out to Pittman and kind of mix things up a little bit, you'll probably see a lot of fantasy points on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. Now, from New England's fantasy point, Mac Jones, we talked about it last week, completed 2 passes for 19 yards and they won. Mac Jones, I liked him in college. He went to Alabama. He's a great game manager. He's a great game manager in New England as well. He's not a good fantasy quarterback.
Right.
The way that defense really shuts down and the way that New England run game can really kind of chew up that clock, he's not going to have a lot of volume. Okay, I don't think he's passed 300 yards in the last 6-7 games. So he's not a good fantasy quarterback. I do like Damian Harris, though. Back to that run game. Mm-hmm. He's going to eat up a lot of clock. He's going to chew up a lot of yards.
And that's the key, too, for New England. If their defense comes to play the game and they hold the Colts to minimal points, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of run game. Belichick, like I said, smart guy. He knows how to run out the clock. He knows what to do. He doesn't have to have a Tom Brady to run out the clock for him.
Right.
So he knows how to get to the end and run that clock out. You'll see a lot of running on that side of the ball if New England gets ahead.
Yep.
If they fall behind, New England's going to be in trouble. If they fall behind big early, they're in big trouble.
Yeah, because you can't rely on Mac Jones to throw 20, 30, 40 times a game.
That's exactly right. So, I do see a lot of fantasy potential there. I don't know that, if I've got some of these guys, and in fact, I've got Michael Pittman on one of my team, on my team that I'm actually in the playoffs, and he's going to be probably on my bench this week. You got to make that. I love Michael Pittman as a receiver, but you got to make that call. You got to make the tough calls when you're in the playoffs, and it's a tough call for me to sit him, but I'm gonna.
Okay, yeah, I would say that's a really tough call. Depends on who else you have too. Right. But that being said, he could get shut down, or he could go off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
If they get down big early, which I think they probably will.
Welcome to fantasy world. It could go one way extreme or the other way extreme at any point. So
absolutely.
All right, let's jump into our bent predictions.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I will go first.
Okay. I think I've gone first the last couple weeks. So.
I've been giving you the stage all day, so I'm gonna take over, and I'm gonna go first this time. So my first pick is the Dallas New England Giants game.
New England Giants?
New York Giants. Sorry, I said New England Giants.
That's if the New York Giants and New England Patriots had a baby.
I was still on this. New England game up here. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. So the over under on that is 44.5, and I'm taking the under on it. Generally, when I make my bet predictions, I go on the over on most of them because I look for potential fantasy points that you might not otherwise, or that the guys in Vegas, I guess, wouldn't see.
Guys and girls in Vegas.
The people in Vegas, don't look at that perspective. So that's what I look at. But I think there's going to be a lot more points in that game than just that, than the 44.
You took the under.
No, I'm sorry. I did take the under. I think there's going to be a lot less points is what I meant to say.
Yes.
I was looking at over here or under here, and I said over. But anyway, I think there's going to be a lot less points in that game than that. I think Dallas is going to have the majority of those points. I think Saquon Barkley is going to get shut down this week.
I do too. And another aspect to that, don't mean to interrupt you, but that line is up to 12 points right now.
It is.
So Dallas is favored by almost 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So what that means is the people out in the desert are predicting that Dallas is going to have the ball most of the game.
Yeah.
So that's good for us because we have shares of the running back. So hopefully they'll be chewing that clock up. Mm-hmm. I could see a 24-10 game, 27-3 game, something like that.
I think your point total is going to be right around 35-40. I don't think it's going to be very high at all.
I don't either.
Like I said, that Dallas defense or that Dallas offense gets going against that Giants defense. They start scoring those points. They're going to eat up the clock, like you said. Saquon Barkley is going to get taken out of the game unless he's catching the ball. And the way they've been playing recently, with their game plans, he's not getting a ton of catches. So
he's not.
It's not something to really rely on from a fantasy perspective at all.
I agree.
What's your opinion?
You got one more, or do you want me to? You want to do one at a time?
Yeah, go ahead. Do your next.
All right. My first one is, and we talked about this game. This was one of our big divisional matchups. Tennessee-Pittsburgh. Although it may not be as close as many people think it is, I think you and I can both agree this wasn't his bet, but it is mine. But I think he shares the same opinion. I think that game is going to go well over 41.5.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially in that beautiful weather there. Mm-hmm. So Tennessee-Pittsburgh over 41.5 is my first bet prediction.
Okay, awesome. My second bet prediction is Washington is the underdog by 7. So I'm picking them to win outright. Now, that being said, I'm still thinking it's going to be a close game. I see a lot of, from a fantasy perspective, like I said, I see a lot of points on one side of the ball, not as much on the other. But I think the score of the game is going to be a close game. I think Washington is actually going to nudge them out, and it'll probably be, I'm guessing, within 3 to 5 point difference at the end of the game.
I do too, and I think either one could win that game. I'm shocked that that's a 7-point line, especially if with it looking like Minshew is going to play and Hurts is out right now.
Yep.
And both teams, keep in mind, is a must-win. They're division rivals, 6 and 7. They play each other tough. I don't know why that's a 7-point line, but I think that's a great pick.
Yeah.
And then my second pick here, there's a contingency to it, okay? If Lamar does not play, okay, I'd love Green Bay to blow that 5.5-point line out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's going to be a blowout. I think we talked about that. I don't trust Tyler Huntley against that Green Bay offense, albeit at home. He hasn't really shown much. He doesn't have the experience. So if Lamar does not play, I think Green Bay is going to blow that 5.5-point line out of the water. It may be up to 8 or 10 by game time if we find out on Friday that if Lamar's not going to play.
Yeah, and that is, I can see where you'd be dependent on that because, Tyler Huntley, I don't think, he can't keep that offense humming like.
No, he definitely can't.
He does good as a fill-in, but he's definitely no Jackson.
And if Lamar's out too, my fantasy year is going to be over because
it's not. You've got Tannehill.
I do have Tannehill. Okay,
I told you.
All right,
man.
All right, so give me that. I need some juju that Pittsburgh doesn't have. So.
All right, so. We're going to wrap it up now. We definitely, being that we are at the end of the season, we want to wish everybody good luck this season, or this week, I should say, and into the playoffs. Except for the 2 teams that are playing us, we would like to wish you to get bent
on fantasy football.
Okay, cool.
All right.